It's a considerable source of pride to me, reflected pride, I have to say, that I represent 1/3 of the Royal Military Academy. It's a source of pride to me that the Royal Logistics Corps at Deepcut have done so much to ensure that when the Army have been operating at home and abroad, they've had the equipment and the support they need. It's a source of pride to me that in Mitchett we've had generations of Army medical officers trained in order to ensure that those who serve on the front line get the support and care that they need. And it's a particular source of pride to me that this community, that Surrey Heath, has been so supportive of the Army over the years. And it's for that reason that, like all of you, I listened to the presentation with a growing sense of admiration. I knew instinctively what the Army did on our behalf, and whenever I watch the news reports and bulletins of what the Army are doing for us now, I always feel a sense of admiration for those young men and women who are risking their lives for us. But I think in the very short presentation we've just seen, it's been powerfully underlined how fortunate we are to have such a strong association with really the best of British. But I also wanted to stress that Surrey Heath, as a constituency and as a community, has many other things to be proud of as well. As well as being a community that understands the meaning of public service, not least through the commitment that the Army provides to keeping this country safe. We're also a community that understands the importance of enterprise, and particularly of innovation. All of you who are gathered here, whether you were involved in education, like Terry Oddy, headmaster of Collingwood, or whether you were involved in local government, like Moira, who's been leader of Surrey Heath Borough Council for a good few years now, and who also serves at a regional and a national level as a spokesperson for local government. Or those of you who are involved directly in business, all of you are involved in making sure that Surrey Heath remains at the cutting edge of innovation, job and wealth creation. We're lucky that we have companies here that have been resilient through the recession and are capable of growth in the future. There are big companies that have chosen to base themselves here. Eli Lilly in Windlesham, Novartis in Frimley, and Siemens, also on the Frimley border. All of them have chosen to base themselves here because they recognise that a combination of our transport links, the highly educated workforce that our schools turn out, and the support that those companies have from a community that believes in enterprise are ingredients that will ensure that they can be successful in the future. I've just been chatting to one of the representatives of Eli Lilly, and it's been encouraging to me to know that they continue to be able to recruit the talent they need to carry on generating the sorts of breakthroughs in medicine that will ensure that we all live longer and more fruitful lives. The same thing happens in the Novartis base in Frimley. And in Siemens, we are the UK base for a world-beating industry. I know there's been a lot of controversy recently about the decision not to award a future contract to the Bombardier factory in Derby. And of course, for the people in Derby, it's a tough blow to take. But that contract went to Siemens. And the reason that it went to Siemens is because there are people working for that company in the United Kingdom and in our constituency who are doing a fantastic job. And we should be proud of everything that they've achieved. Proud, but also conscious of the unique pressures that business face at the moment. We know that the cost of raw materials for manufacturing is rising. We know that for anyone who runs a small or medium-sized enterprise, the weight of regulation that the last government heaped on them is crippling. We know that when it comes to taking a decision to take a risk on a young person, many public-spirited enterprises pause before taking that risk because they know that if they make a mistake, the cost of saying goodbye to that person could be disproportionate, potentially crippling to that company and its capacity to keep others on. So rather than take the risk on a young person who deserves it, they stick with what they know, they don't grow, opportunity is lost. Well, I'm committed, and this coalition government is committed, to helping major enterprises by tackling some of the factors that have held us back as a nation, and helping small and medium-sized enterprises to grow. And in my particular role as Secretary of State for Education, I have a unique responsibility. There are some businesses that will always be with us. We'll always need, as we discovered this morning, great chefs who can prepare fantastic food. We'll always need doctors and those who are preparing the drugs that they use. We'll always need an army to protect us, and we will always need those who provide it with the kit that keeps our soldiers and our communities safe. But the truth is that we're all preparing for a world in which there will be jobs created that we can't imagine in industries that we haven't conceived of. 20 years ago, who would have thought that web design would have been an integral part of the future? Who would have imagined 20 years ago that one of the largest companies in the southeast of England would have been Vodafone, and that it would have been the emblem or the hallmark of industrial success? None of us can know quite what technological breakthroughs there will be or how the world of work will change, which is why we critically need to make sure that the next generation of workers and entrepreneurs are educated to the very highest level. Now, as I've underlined, one of the reasons that we're fortunate in Surrey Heath is that we already have superb schools. Of the 4 secondary schools in the Surrey Heath borough, 3 of them are in the Premier Leagues of work. Collingwood, Gordon's and Tomlinsford are all ranked by Ofsted as outstanding or good with outstanding features. And that means they're the sorts of schools that others are invited to emulate because of what they're doing. So we're fortunate indeed. But we also recognise that the challenges that we face from other countries are growing. All of you know that you're competing every day, not just against businesses from the north of England or the European Union, but you're competing in a global marketplace. And in that global marketplace, other countries are training their young people to a higher and higher level. I was in China on a trade mission with the Prime Minister in November, and I was struck by both the appetite that the Chinese have for well-made British goods and the fact that there is a huge market there that we can exploit. But I was also struck by the fact that the next generation of Chinese graduates is developing at an amazing rate. I went to a school in Beijing. I was handed a book which contained lots and lots of Chinese characters, little paragraphs in English. I certainly couldn't understand the Chinese characters, and the English, because it was about science, was pretty difficult for me to read as well. But I asked the head teacher as he showed me this, I said, very kind of you to show me this textbook. And he paused and said, it's not a textbook. This is actually a collection of all the essays that this school has had published in academic journals in university papers around the world. I said, well, that's amazing. Your teachers have time, not just to teach young people, but to publish academic papers. And he looked at me with a pitying smile, and he said, it's not the teachers who published academic papers, it's the pupils. Think about it. 16 and 17-year-olds in China, capable of holding their own academically with university undergraduates and graduates across the world. Young people in Shanghai, at the age of 14, are 2 years ahead of young people here at the age of 14 in their knowledge of mathematics. Not the brightest, every child in Shanghai. And that's one of the reasons why I feel that great as our education system has been, we do need to go further. We need to make sure that our curriculum is fit for purpose and every bit as stretching as those in other countries. We need to make sure that our teachers are the best possible. Existing teachers need more support. Support to keep discipline in the classroom when a small disruptive minority can make learning difficult for some. And support also to ensure that they can differentiate the curriculum, to help those children who are falling behind to do even better, and to stretch the very best so they can be the best in the world. And we also need to give support to our head teachers and principals, liberating them from the bureaucracy that's held them back, and giving them the opportunity to take their schools from excellent to world class. That's why I'm so pleased that Jerry Oddy and other head teachers in Surrey have taken advantage of academy status and the freedom it brings, not just to improve their own schools, but to help other schools as well in the context of collaboration. But we also need to think hard about how we can ensure that our exam system supports great teaching and ensures that children are doing their very best. We need to make sure that schools are more relevant to the world of work by making sure that links with business are strong and that it's easier for students to acquire work experience when they're 16, 17 and 18. We need to make sure that there are a growth of apprenticeships in high-value areas like pharmaceuticals and engineering and manufacturing if we're going to ensure that we have the workforce of the future. It's because the pressures from across the world are so powerful that we're making the changes now. And inevitably, as we make those changes, there will be some people who will argue that we're going too far and too fast. it's vitally important that we take the maximum number of people with us as we make those changes. But I'm utterly convinced that we have to make those changes. Because for me, the greatest betrayal of all would be to be in charge of an education system at a time of global change. To hunker down, to hope that that change will pass, and then, at the end of that process, to find that our young people are entering an ever more competitive world, without the qualifications, without the confidence, without the skills necessary to be able to hold down jobs and to generate the wealth in order to have fulfilling and happy lives for the future. So that's the mission on which we're embarked. And I'm uniquely fortunate that in Surrey Heath I have a constituency that I can be proud of, and heads and teachers whom I can point to as exemplars of what we need to do across the country. Thank you very much.